I aloha mai kākou. O wau keiki Kahuawaiola. I am keiki Kahuawaiola. Let's see. Can you hear me okay? Great, mahalo. I'm Keiki Kahuawaiola, the Luna Ho'okele, the director for Kahuawaiola o Ke'eli Kolani. And one of my main passions and work coming up through our 40-year work in language revitalization has been teacher education. In some of my earlier work, opening up the immersion school at Paia School that it brought me into Halikomo'o, developing curriculum, and then into Kahuawaiola. So I think what we have to share for you today is some ideas about what we've done in teacher education as a strategy and a piece of the strategy for revitalizing ʻŌlelo Hawaii, and how we've addressed that, and some of the things we're doing to advance our work here. So I'm gonna switch, and let's hopefully I can put on this PowerPoint that I have. You'd hold on just a minute. Okay. I'd like to start with this, this front slide here, as each of these four, I'm going to say preparing to become teachers at the time that this photo was taken. Each one of them have come up through the movement. Many of them punana leo babies coming up through the K-12 and graduating, going into higher education, and really deciding that one of the places that they can make a huge contribution into further advancing and sustaining and our work for ʻŌlelo Hawaii is to become kumu. And so I think what we're going to be talking about today is really focusing on this idea of action for justice and justice in action, and providing sort of the background around the work and some examples in application. So at the time of our Hawaiian nation was overthrown and into the Republic and the territory, and over statehood time, somewhere around 75 years of cultural assimilation had been occurring in Hawaii, and really moving us to a speak English, and in a very Western setting in our schools. That became the default for education. So for the work, as it started in the mid-80s, if you could imagine and think from your own languages. So if you ʻŌlelo Hawaii, I want you to think a little bit and just close your eyes just for a minute. And I want you to think about ʻŌlelo Hawaii and what that may look like in school. And for those of you that come from other native language or other languages, I want you to close your eyes and think about those languages. And I want you to imagine coming into the school and thinking about what the school looks like. The sounds that you hear in the school, what you see on the walls of the classroom, the language you hear between the students, some of the curriculum that you might hear, the little babies, maybe the kinds of things they might have in centers. I want you to imagine and kind of take a snapshot in your head what that may look like. You have a snapshot? Now I want you to open your eyes. So our work for language revitalization has been a family-based movement. And one of the major strategies for revitalizing our language, which is still a highly endangered language, has been education. So I want you to take that snapshot and think about what that would mean for teachers. If we have schools, we must have teachers. And we cannot use a regular Western setting for preparing our teachers. It doesn't probably match the image that you had in your mind, because English is the first language of the school. It is the language which all instruction is taught. Culture is embedded in the foundation of the ways in which classroom and learning is taught. So there is a misalignment there. So in the 1990s, upper 1990s, we started talking about building a Kahuawaiola at that time, a teacher preparation program, because our schools were growing and growing. And as you can see now, we've got over 3,800 students in our schools. We have about 219 teachers, and we have families that are waiting on the list that can't get in because we don't have enough classrooms and we don't have enough kumu. We do not have enough teachers. So part of revitalizing Hawaiian is going to be heavily important to prepare our kumu. And our kumu is, Hawaiian immersion is currently on the federal registry for critical teacher shortage areas. So what Kahuawaiola does is it prepares teachers specifically for the setting of immersion Hawaiian medium education for those 3,800 plus students. The program is built on the philosophy of the Kumu Honua Mauliola, and is very, very important if you're going to be doing Indigenous work to ground that work in a philosophy that is of that language, of that culture, of that people. So this is kind of just a really quick overview of the three major pieces of our Kumu Honua Mauliola philosophy, really focusing that one of our major goals is not necessarily the instruction of content. It's the whole development of that person, their mauli, their living spirit, and all of the content and skills become part of that whole kanaka, that whole human being, that education is key in that process of preparing that child. So there are our spiritual connections, our behavior and actions that's tied really close to things like classroom management. Ike ku'una, the ways in which we might do our curriculum is commonly a lot more interdisciplinary. So you'll see the context of cultural things put in with the content as well as the skills. And of course, the advancement of our ʻŌlelo means that we need to be able to articulate our kumu, even difficult abstractions, like what is osmosis to a child in first grade? You know, these require some advanced skills in ʻŌlelo Hawaii. But even more important, I think, is that whole cultural perspective that helps to shape the way in which kumu articulate and instruct children in the classroom. The third of our, another one of the major pillars of the Kumu Honua Mauliola is PICO, our past, present, future connections, our 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 those things that we can control, not control, and those creative parts of us right up here at our PICO E, of the top of our head, and the environments that we move children from the ieve, that place in the womb in the mother, coming out to the kipuka, where most of schooling happens, preschool all the way up to 12, preparing them for the ao holo which is a larger environment. So this is the structure from which all of our coursework is developed, and we think about how we are instructing and preparing teachers in our own teaching and preparation of teachers, their classroom practicum, their seminar experience, so on and so forth. One of the things that we've had to address and think about, because our campus in particular really had to start with a conversation of where will a teacher ed program reside in our campus. And we landed on two separate programs, so kind of unusual for our campus that has their mainstream teacher education programs taught in one college and Hawaiian medium teacher preparation taught in the College of Hawaiian Language. I think you could see where the connectedness is. Then looking at our work across all of the places from the Punana Leo all the way up to grade 12, and the ways in which we need to think about our program and how our program is going to work, our action in practice, you know, and where we need to be and how we need to develop that. So beginning here for this idea of the Painu'u Poki'i and helping teachers coming in the early stages of being Punana Leo preschool teachers, not certified, that's their first step just into their CDA, I think it's called CDA, yeah. And then we have an early childhood certificate which all of early childhood does not require a bachelor's degree. It's usually around an AA degree, a community college level degree. And the continued pathway that gets them closer to their BA and to be able to come into a program like Kahuawaiola. So Kahuawaiola will prepare them for their ability to apply for teacher license. The university does not give the license. It prepares the teachers for in a program that certifies them that they can go and apply for a license. And the license is given by the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board here in Hawaii. And as you can see, the pathway goes on to our MA and our PhD. So there are some students that kind of can come right through the center in that pathway. But the truth is if you see up and above each of these squares, there are also places and doors that they come in various different ways. And we need to be really considerate and thoughtful about how we address those various ways to bring in students to work and complete either their ECE certificate or Kahuawaiola. And that's really, really important to have multiple ways in which they come into the work. This is just a kind of a highlight on some of background of our program. Kahuawaiola is accredited by the World Indigenous Nations Higher Education Consortium, which is an international accreditation. And they have an accreditation, one of their kinds of accreditation is called Indigenous Teacher Education. So Kahuawaiola has a 10-year accredited by WINHEC for its Kahuawaiola program. Then the program itself starts across 3 semesters. The first semester is all their foundations course, and it's very intensive. They come in for a series of weeks during a slot of time during the summer. Over COVID, we had to go over Zoom. And then we've decided to kind of compromise between the two and hold so many weeks over Zoom and the remainder face-to-face. There are some things and connections that make the best connections face-to-face working with students. But because of the length of the time, around 5 weeks, it's a long time for families to be away from home. So many of our candidates come from the neighboring islands because our program services all of the islands. We currently very, very joyfully have even a student from Lanai this year. So we're glad to be able to help move that and their school on Lanai. So being able to use Zoom and the combination of face-to-face seems to be a really good working way of preparing teachers. When they're with us and even in their Zoom class, their lessons, their activities, their classroom practicum area is 2 full-time semesters, which means they're in with a master teacher where their language is further developing as well as their skills and their know-how in ʻŌlelo Hawaiian instruction. All of the courses are taught by very knowledgeable and experienced experts in this area. And the last thing I would like to mention before I pass it over to Kehau is that we have 2 tracks. The track that I just got through explaining is our current track for ʻŌlelo Hawaii, because we have had about 20 years in this work. And there are many other indigenous people that we begin to partner with because they are having some of the same issues in trying to create programs for the indigenous medium language programs for their own languages. And our model can serve as an assistance as they develop the dynamics of their own teacher ed programs. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Kehau.
Aloha. Unmute. So, aloha me kākou o wau ke haulani Shintani ke alakai o ka mahele au kukui o ka ahapu nana leo. Mahalo keiki no ka wehewehe, I kana I wehewehe ai. Really quickly, I wanted to, as Keiki talked about action in practice, practice in action. At the Punana Leo, we have 13 licensed child care centers. We will be reopening up two of our two infant toddler centers come next fall. We have 63 employees throughout the state of Hawaii, full-time and part-time. And all of our staff are at varying levels and proficiency in Hawaiian, as well as being part of the educational pathway toward a degree. And so our primary goal is to have our staff be proficient in providing a Mauliola education and experience for our children and our families. So I would like to say again, for our children and our families. And so typically when we look at a teacher preparation program, we look at a preparation program for children or for adults. But in our centers, our staff work to work with the children in a day program, but also with the families that they will be able to provide support in their home. As Keiki mentioned, when we talk about a Mauliola education program, every staff member that works within the Punana Leo needs to be as strong as we can be. And I say we, whether we're in admin, we are in the classroom, or whatever position we have that will come into play in this Hawaiian revitalization movement of ours, that we all understand the Mauliola Hawaii and have strengthened living cultural life forces within ourselves, the Hawaiian, which means an understanding of spirituality, understanding the ways of movement and behavior, our lavena, being able to speak and hold a conversation in Hawaiian when we need to, and when we don't have to, and we choose to speak it, as well as having the work that we do our classrooms have Hawaiian tradition-based knowledge within the modern day context, within the classroom and outside. So because of this, we don't just have preschools. We're not just revitalizing a language. We're actually revitalizing our life force in today's society. And so when we take a look at that, we understand that mainstream may not view necessarily those things that we hold important to ourselves. And those are those things that I mentioned prior, those four things. Ike ku'una, kalavena, pili uhane, those four things that make up our life force. And so for Punana Leo, staff development, staff training, and any type of education has been made a priority for many years. And we do this by holding our own in-service. We have Laho Nui Ike, which are 3 hours, 6 times a year. We have Halawai Nu'ukia, which are 2 full-day trainings for our staff, where we bring everyone together. We put resources and time to have this Halawai Nu'ukia. And then we have a 4-day residential institute where we come together during the summer for 4 days. We sleep, we wake up, and everything we're doing is to reinforce the Mauliola Hawaii as within our organization, within our ku'ikahi. So in our 4-day residential institute, we also invite Kahakaula to participate, Navahi, and their teachers. So we come together as a consortium to strengthen our understanding and our ways of knowing Mauliola Hawaii within our context. And so these that I just mentioned are specific to the sites, to Punana Leo, and the learnings that we have because we are doing the work. There's a lot of peer teaching. We work with Kahakaula in research, for our Hakalama program, for our math program, our reading program, and our math program that comes transfer over to ours. They help with these trainings, but everything is centered on the Punana Leo classroom. But we don't stop there in our training. We also have what is next key. Another very important component of staff development is actually the relationship that we have with Kahakaʻula and with Kahuawaiola in the state institutional pathway. I hope I said that correctly. You know, Makikulanui, in the University Western Institute setting. And I say that I say it that way because when we look at a university setting, we automatically think of a certain structure, a certain maybe, do they do terms, semesters, you have 1 hour, you have 14 credits, you need to do this, you need to get a grade and all of that. And for us, what we found is working very closely with Kahakaʻula, using Kahakaʻula's Kahuawaiola understanding our needs, they have been able to develop what Keiki explained. You can see on the bottom of this slide, looking at a pathway for the Punana Leo education pathway, or anyone who wants to go into Hawaiian medium education. We're still working on the CDA-like credential, which is Painu Upoki'i, which is workforce development. A lot of our staff is still at just starting the education pathway. So we work closely with Kahakaʻula staff to start to path our employees through an educational pathway. First and foremost, our primary goal working with the different colleges with Kahakaʻula is Hawaiian language proficiency, because not everyone comes in proficient in the Hawaiian language, but what they do have is passion and desire to speak Hawaiian. And because of that, we're able to path our staff into levels of Hawaiian language. We also, working with Kahakaʻula, we see that some of the courses that have been developed, they've developed specialized Hawaiian language courses to meet the needs of Punana Leo and our staff. We've also, Keiki explained about our Hawaiian medium early education courses. There's 4 of them. They are not comparable. They are like something you might find in a community college. However, the Hawaiian language proficiency needed to participate in the class is at a 300 level, because all papers and instruction is done through the medium of Hawaiian. And so it's a little bit much more rigorous. Through our partnership, we've also worked together, taking the Aha Punana Leo's Hakalama reading program, and we've worked together to come up with an introduction to Hakalama class, as well as an introduction to Lauki'ina'o, which are, I say it in English so often, I don't even know the Hawaiian so often, I don't know the English. Thank you very much, I'll drop it in the chat. Lauki'ina, lau, many ways of teaching. So we have an introductory class, but one of the things we also benefit from with Kahuawaiola is it's years of cultivating, pathing our staff, if you look at this, toward the higher degree, which is ultimately Kahuawaiola to get a state licensure, and then eventually, should they desire, a master's or even a doctorate degree. So working with the Hawaiian Language College and Kahuawaiola, this is actually not a one-time, it's actually years of pathing staff through the university system. And the best thing when I think of our motto today, not motto, but makahana ka'ike, makahana ka pono kaulike, is working with the state agency to provide what we need to move our programs forward. And he lana kila kila, that is something that we have taken and be made ours for our benefit. Mahalo nui.
Ai, aloha mai. We have Kevin Shendo and Lana Garcia here with us from the Pueblo of Jemez, and they are working with us on our new Indigenous teacher preparation track. And we've invited them to talk a little bit about our work together and how that's is going to further assist their work with revitalizing the Jemez language.
Zonki wishitoita shizi tava lomento ki montale lomento ki mole ni oshipo kwa kihomu tulada isitami. Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Shendo, Education Director for the Pueblo of Jemez. And want to thank Keiki and her team here for opening their doors to us to be able to share in our work around preparing our teachers to be able to continue to teach and maintain our language. The Pueblo of Jemez is located in north central New Mexico. You see the star there. We are surrounded by mountains and mesas. The sacred. Ooh.
Hold on, we just noticed that the PowerPoint is up, not upright. Hold on a second. Let's switch that out. Mahalo for your patience.
So as I was sharing, the Pueblo of Jemez is located about 50 miles northwest of Albuquerque in north central New Mexico. We are, those are the Jemez Mountains that you see there. Our sacred mountain, Wavima, is also a dormant volcano. And so we live in the valley. All our ancestral lands, our sacred religious sites lie within the mesa tops and mountain areas of our region there. Unfortunately, majority of those lands now are under federal or private ownership. To give you a sense, we have a population of just around 4,000. Living on the reservation fluctuates between 2,900 to 3,000 people, and a lot of it is because of housing shortage. So we live in one village, the entire population, and that's just some data on fluency in Jemez, self-reported from the census. And I think what was most striking to us from the latest census was that 17% of our households with children were speaking English only. And so that was a red flag for us in working with our Department of Education and the schools. We did also do a language survey at the tribal level in 2006, and across generations, roughly was 80% was the fluency. But we know that looking back now, or looking at the current status of the language, we can safely say that it's probably as low as 65 to 70%. So back in 1999, our community pulled together, our tribal leadership pulled together our community to have a visioning session and asked the community to envision looking at 10 years timeframes. And so we've developed two visioning sessions or a visioning plan in 2010 and 2020. And the three themes that continue to emerge surrounding education are building capacity within our young people to be able to assume responsible leadership roles, not only in the tribe, but in whatever career path they may choose. Taking ownership over the education systems of our young people, recognizing that our education has always been defined by somebody else, and really looking at how do we take ownership of that and really make the decisions for ourselves, for our young people. And in redefining education, really focus around all the recommendations of language and culture-based education, integrating language and infusing the different curriculum that we're sharing. As a result of that, our tribal council in December of 2012, passed a resolution to convert our Head Start program to full immersion. And this, we do have a federally funded Office of Head Start program. And so that action actually went against the performance standards of Head Start, which require us to teach in English and preparing them for entry into kindergarten. So moving forward, we kept working with our partners and identified institutions of higher ed that supported language and culture-based strategies. Because one of the biggest challenges that we had in implementing language and culture-based curriculum, lessons and such, was that a lot of it, we were challenged, is it research-based? How do you know that the strategies you're implementing and how you're teaching and how you're choosing to integrate language into the different school systems is validated? So the challenges we got were not only from the public education department in New Mexico, the Bureau of Indian Education System, we also the Office of Head Start and Child Care. And those are the main funding sources that fund our different schools and programs that we have in the community. And so being able to look at that from that lens. In 2003, the state of New Mexico passed the Indian Education Act. And through that, it offered what we call a 520 licensure, alternative licensure, where that a tribe and the leadership could determine who is best fit to teach language and culture-based classes within the public and charter schools. The only problem was that those teachers were not recognized as full-fledged teachers, but often compensated at the EA or an assistant level, which changed last year when the House passed, with the support of our representative and senator, who are both come from tribal communities, the Pueblo Sandy and the Pueblo Jemez, introduced a bill so that our teachers under that licensure now are paid at the same level as licensed teachers. The concern that came up as we changed our Head Start to full immersion, and as we looked at integrating all the different content areas and performance standards, was that licensure from the state only was relevant for language and culture-based classes. So now, as we're diversifying our curriculum, integrating different areas into this work, we needed to come up with a way to be able to prepare our teachers, because at that time, we were sending them through the teacher training programs at the local community colleges and the universities in New Mexico, but they were getting their degrees in elementary ed, early childhood ed, and then we were asking them to put aside a lot of what they've learned, and this is how we want you to teach in an immersion setting. So all our professional development was very different from the pedagogy and instruction they were receiving in the classroom. And so that was when we reached out to the University of Hawaii here to really look at, and we did a site visit with our leadership in 2013, and then we go in with our Head Start program in 2016, and really made the decision to move forward with this partnership, and requested the assistance of Keiki and the team here to be able to help us define our own licensure program based in the Jemez language. One of the main challenges was that our language is not written, and we continue to work through that. It's an oral-based language. Our tribal leadership does not want it to be written. And so how do we continue to move forward with this effort and the unique innovations that will come from this partnership? I'm going to turn this over now to Lana Garcia, our Head Start manager, just to share some of the action pieces that we're working with at the Head Start level and with the cohort as well.
He tēnā ki wa she ba she toi te wa she zeni ha da wi azola ki humani pete setami. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Lana Garcia, and I'm the Head Start manager for the Pueblo of Jemez. I've been in my position since 2007, and it was right at the time that, you know, the tribe had decided that they would focus the language maintenance efforts with the Head Start age children. We did have childcare under us for a time, and then we made some changes, but they've recently, 2 years ago, have come back under us. So now we are a complete early childhood program that we serve children 0 to 5 years old. So some of the challenges that I believe, you know, being under Head Start program, being a federally funded program, is that we're mandated to meet certain funding requirements within our program. One of them is how we prepare our teachers. And One of them specifically is that we're required to use a monitoring tool called CLASS. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of it, but we're required to to have some certified teachers in class. And through this certification, teachers are required to view classroom videos of non-native children in non-native classrooms. And this, it's not culturally relevant, and it doesn't support how we want to develop our teachers. And so for us, being full language immersion, it really just, we have not done class since 2013, being that we're full immersion. And I know that other tribal communities are probably going through this, but I, really put my foot down, and I did not allow the monitoring team that they come out every 3 years and they do a full monitoring of our program. And I asked them to leave our classroom when it was time to do class. So things like this, is not good for us. The other thing that I also want to talk about is just our partnership with University of Hawaii, our first cohort that I belong to, which is going to be our teaching cohort. We have had a lot of, this is our 3rd semester taking courses here, and it's just really done a lot for us in the 3 semesters. We've really looked at the structure of our language and how it has evolved over the years, deciding what we want to teach and how we want to teach that. And so this is really important for us as we begin our journey. Our next cohort is going to start in the summer again, and this will be a group of teachers. And so we're hoping that we'll be here together, and we will continue to work on our program. So thank you very much.
Mahalo. So with a major goal in mind that we have Hawaiian medium, Jemez medium, Indigenous medium teachers that are prepared to work with our students in our medium environments of our various languages, we really have needed to be very, very creative in how we do that, so that we keep our hands close to the ground, our ears close to the ground, really working to develop programs that are maybe not traditionally seen in usual Western education, but work for the needs of our children and the nature of the way our schools are being developed. And with that, we have reached the end of our presentation. I didn't notice any questions. So Ku'ule, I don't know if you want to ask a question or not, but we are have completed our section. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui, Ana Keiki, and mahalo kekahi to Kehao, Kevin, and Lana for your presentations on all the great work that you folks are doing individually as well as collectively working together, which I think is a really important thing to share in this conference as well with others, that that work and practice of doing work for revitalization, collaborating in ways that we can build with each other. So I think that's evident in the presentations that you folks have shown, and mahalo nui to you folks for that.